Right, good afternoon and welcome to Clayton County Library System's Virtual Graphic Novel Club. My name is Erica Ware.
I'm Roland Wellmaker.
And we will be talking about Marvel's Black Widow today. I know her film already premiered on Disney Plus and on in theaters last month, but we're going to cover her now. So we're going to jump right on into her backstory. Marvel Black Widow first appearance was in Tales of Suspense, number 52 in 1964. She was actually created by Stan Lee, and scripter Don Rico and artist Don Heck are the ones who came up with her look. Her original look is there on the left. You can see her, she looks like a lady of great wealth as she is in her purple dress and kind of sort of a boa. I guess that's a mink boa there. But she was a super spy. Natasha Romanoff had a checkered past. She became, even though she becomes one of S.H.I.E.L.D.'s most deadly assassins and a frequent member of the Avengers, her lineage starts off, she was born in Russia in the 1920s. No one knows her exact birthday. That's how old she is. And Russia began to export the revolution to other countries. So they came up with this project called the Red Room Project. They took 28 girls, one of them was Romanoff, and they altered their physique and trained them in espionage and assassination to be super spies. She was rescued in Stalingrad as a young girl by Ivan Petrovich Bryozhkov. That was her adopted father. And he trained her to be a fighter. During World War II, she was kidnapped by the Hand, who will come back to them. They are very important. And to be an assassin, but she was saved by Captain America, aka Steve Rogers, Captain America, and Wolverine, Logan, who were fighting in World War II. She went back after she was rescued by those two. She went back to serve in the Russian army. So, because the Axis, the Allies were all Russians, United States, Canada. They were all on the same side at that time. And she went back to serve in the Russian army, and she fell in love with a fellow soldier named Nikolai. But he died in war, and their daughter was killed before her first birthday. So Natasha was kind of sort of, she was basically a widow by that point, and she kind of felt like she had really nothing to sort of live for. So she kind of threw herself back into becoming a servant to the state. So after World War II, Natasha trained in the Black Widow program, aka the Red Room Project. And she was trained to be a sleeper agent, but she was also implanted with false memories during this time. So she was trained. So as an adult, she really doesn't know what's real and what's not real about her life. They've been able to piece some stuff together, but we'll get into that a little bit later. But during her time while she was training, she met the Winter Soldier, who is aka Bucky Barnes. And they dated. And so he was brainwashed into becoming the Winter Soldier around this time. And it was frowned upon for those two to be dating because he was being brainwashed, she was being brainwashed, they were being trained to be assassins. And their romance, however short-lived it was, it lasted and it made an impact on both of their lives. Him not knowing that who he was, and her just kind of coming into herself as an assassin. But she moves on, and the state of Russia decided to place her with one of their brightest stars, whose name was Alexei Shkoskovich. He was a brilliant test pilot, and they gave them this, like, they set them up basically to get married, and they were like the great, this is Mother Russia, these are our greatest, he got this pilot here, and this wonderful, brilliant spy for Russia. So they put them together, and they had a happy marriage, even though it was sort of like a staged marriage, but it was a happy marriage. She actually really did love Alexei, but Mother Russia was like, ooh, you know what, we made a mistake. So what they did is they faked Alexei's death, and because of that, um, she kind of threw herself, being a widow, she threw herself back into her work, and she became one of the greatest assassins for Mother Russia. And although Alexei did not die, they actually brought him back to the homeland, and they made him into the Red Guardian, which we will also touch on a little bit later. And he was the USSR's version of Captain America. So she grieved for her husband, even though he wasn't dead, and trained harder. And that's when she got her nickname Black Widow. But her first assignment is here on the left in Tales of Suspense. This is her first assignment in America, to kill Tony Stark. There's Iron Man there. There's the Crimson Dynamo there. So she and a fellow assassin, Boris Turgonov, who is the Crimson Dynamo, were sent to assassinate a former Russian scientist named Anton Vanko. That name may sound familiar to some of you because Anton Vanko was the father of Whiplash. And Whiplash is from Iron Man 2, played by Mickey Rourke. He played Whiplash, and he blamed Iron Man for stealing his father's, he blamed Stark for stealing his father's inventions, but that's not the whole story. But Anton actually was a defector from Russia. He, at one point in time, was also the Crimson Dynamo, and he had taken the work he had done in Russia and brought it to the United States, shared it with Tony in the Stark industry, and they were looking, this was the way during the Cold War to fight Russia. And Vanko had defected, and Tony was, and he had took that armor with him. So Natasha and Turgonov were sent to eliminate Vanko, and if you have to kill Tony in the process, you kill him too. So she was sent, and she sort of, as you can see, Natasha was an attractive woman, and we all know what Tony Stark's weaknesses are: booze and attractive women. So with his billionaire playboy self, he fell hard for Natasha, and she easily sort of entrapped him, sort of like Iron Man 2, that whole storyline, but a little bit different because she was still working for Russia. She was, the mission actually went south because Vanko figured out that they were Russian spies, and he sacrificed himself to save Tony. So they were going to kill Tony. Vanko sacrificed himself, and in the process, he also killed, Vanko killed Turgonov, which was Crimson Dynamo. And so when the mission went south, Natasha got away without killing Tony, but everyone else died. And so she escaped, and then she was like, I got to right my wrongs. So, and because she failed her mission, she stayed in the United States, and she faked defection, like unlike Vanko, who actually legitimately switched. She comes back and seduces Tony again, like he didn't learn his lesson the first time. And so Tony he falls for her again. And she was able to steal his anti-gravity ray gun. And when he uncovered the plot, and it caused destruction against the United States and a lot of that, he deactivated the device, but the damage was done. Her cover was blown, and she found a new ally because she was still trying to get rid of Tony, and she was still trying to help Mother Russia. So she partners up with Hawkeye, an outlaw at the time, and manipulated him into working against Iron Man. And she added some stuff to Hawkeye's archery arsenal and gave him some high-tech weapons and some to attack Iron Man. And in the battle, Stark deflected an explosive explosive arrow to defend himself, but it ended up injuring Natasha. Hawkeye, who was in love with Natasha, rushed to help her, allowing Tony to get away. But in that time of her spending with Hawkeye, because that was a whole entire storyline for Marvel, she actually does care for Hawkeye, and Hawkeye is able to get her to see the error in her ways of being a spy for Russia, and all this stuff, and how she's working for the wrong side, and how she's being manipulated. And so she sees how good Hawkeye is, because at the end of the day, Hawkeye, we'll talk about him later, but he's a good guy, and he has very much he does what's always right, even when it may hurt him in the process. He's just that straight and narrow type of guy. And she saw how idealistic he was, and how he had this strong moral compass. So she was like, she had to find her own way, and she had been in a lifetime of conditioning by the Russian government. So she was kind of trying to find out who she was. So she defects from Russia for real this time, and she begins to work with. She teams up with Shield, with Nick Fury. Nick Fury, and with Nick, he helps her to sort of get her memories back. Like, they do some work with some brain work with her. So she and Hawkeye team up again. She teams up with the Avengers, and then this is also around the time she finds out that she and Hawkeye are captured on assignment by General Yuri Brushova, and he's another bad guy, somebody she used to work for. And that's when she finds out her husband is actually not dead. Alexei is still alive. And and that the Red Guardian, and that he had become the Red Guardian. And so he sacrifices himself when he's like, I still love Natasha. So he ends up sacrificing himself to protect the superhero team of the Avengers. And that's sort of the birth of Black Widow. She goes on to team up not only with the Avengers, she's in and out of the Avengers, but really her base is S.H.I.E.L.D. She works a lot with Nick Fury. She has a lot of love for Nick Fury, we'll talk about later, because he's like a father figure to her, although they're probably around the same age, I'm guessing. She works with S.H.I.E.L.D. a lot. The Champions she works with, she's teamed up with Daredevil, and she's been a part of the Secret Avengers, but she's all over Marvel, and we will get into that now. Some of her powers, she's an expert. She's a spy, first of all. She's I didn't know this until I did a little research, but she has the similar secret serum that Steve Rogers was given. The Russian government implanted everyone that goes to the Red Room with this serum. So that's why she still looks young, even though she was born in the 1920s. She's had a long life. She has speed, agility. She's not as good as, like, the serum is not as good as the one Steve got, but it's decent. She has speed, superhuman strength, not to the amount of Captain America, but it's close. She's a gymnast, agility, endurance. She's a highly trained super spy, and she's one of the greatest covert assassins in the world. She ages slowly like Captain America, but again, not the super serum she was given was not 100% of what it was, a knockoff of what Captain America got. Like, it was like the generic version. So yeah, she ages slowly, but again, not like Captain America. And she's still alive in the Marvel Universe. She just came back from the dead. So I guess in 2020, she just came back from the dead. So I'm sure we'll be seeing a little bit more of her. That's her latest cover here on the right, with her newest missions that she's out here doing.
Okay, so we're going to jump into the allies of Black Widow. The first one being Iron Man, Tony Stark, genius, billionaire philanthropist.
Yep. And yeah, we've never covered him, and I don't know if we will. He's a very interesting guy, though. He's Marvel's Batman. Exact same story, except for his tragic shrapnel in his heart. All right. Next on the list of allies is Hawkeye. Clint Barton is the world's greatest archer, as you can see there. Those two fighting together. He is the mainstay hero on the Avengers team. He has a heroic spirit. Like I said earlier, he is through and through great. He's just a nice guy. Not really nice guy, but he's gonna always do the right thing. He has the ability to hit any target. He grew up in the circus as an orphan with his brother, and he was taken under the wing of a man called the Swordsman, a charismatic fellow performer who teamed up with a talented tricks shot, and he trained young Clint to with the bow and arrow. When he caught Swordsman, his idol and his father figure, embezzling funds, he turned him in to the authorities, but it did not end well for Clint. He suffered, he got basically beat up by his father figure because he brought the authorities into it. And Clint was then separated from his brother because his brother went off with the Swordsman and continued to follow the circus. Even though he suffered that beating, it did not change his ways of doing what was always right. So then he came up with this alter ego called Hawkeye, where he could still kind of perform these feats that he could do with the bow and arrow and hide behind pretty much a mask. He ran into Natasha around this time too, as he isn't going into adulthood, and she basically seduces him, using him to fight Iron Man. He falls hard for her, like that was like the love of his life at the time, and she used him to her advantage. They clashed several times with Iron Man, and when she suffers her injury, it kind of wakes him up, and he reconsiders his path. Like, I'm here doing the dirty work for you, who's a Russian spy, and he goes back on the straight and narrow. And then he gave him the opportunity to join the Avengers because he saves Jarvis, who is Iron Man's butler at the time, saves him and his wife's life. Something had happened, and he just happened to be there and stepped in. Jarvis puts in a good word to Tony. Tony then says, when they're looking for members of the Avengers, Tony puts in a good word with the rest of the team, and Captain America and all that. He would join Captain America, Quicksilver, and Scarlet Witch as the second generation of the Avengers was kicking off, and he had a long and distinguished tenure with the team. He also is the one who convinced Natasha to leave the Russian spy world and defect to America and become an Avenger. So they've dated on and off, but they are much better friends than they are lovers.
All right. Our next ally will be the ally known as Daredevil. Basically, as a boy, Matt Murdock lost his sight to a radioactive solution that fell off a truck and gained superhuman senses in the accident. Basically, after the accident, his blindness taught him to live without fear. He went on to study law, leading him to a life of crime fighting in New York as both a lawyer and as the vigilante Daredevil. Growing up in the Hell's Kitchen neighborhood of New York, Matt's father was a prize fighter. His mother abandoned the family when he was young, and his father was killed after he refused to take a fall in a fight. Once he grew up to become that lawyer and vigilante, justice would be served, because if Matt did not get you in court, he could bring you to justice in New York streets. Daredevil is also a significant person in Natasha's life. The two work together on and off for years, and they can rely on each other, always coming to the other's aid. They even live together and moved to San Francisco, being a vigilante duo. Although they realize they can never be together, Natasha will always protect Daredevil, and whatever love of his is in trouble at the time. And he will similarly help her through difficult times in her life. One of the big story arcs between the duo of Daredevil and Black Widow was actually when Hawkeye came back into the picture as the current cover that we're showing actually depicts. And that is Daredevil.
All right. And the other cool thing about them is that she was given her own series like in the 70s after she joined the Avengers, but then she kind of took a break because she needed to figure out what was going on with those implanted memories she was having. Mm-hmm. So they gave her own series in the 70s, but it didn't last very long. So what they started doing was teaming her up with other members. Like, she would be in the Avengers, but she was sort of in and out. But Daredevil was one of the ones they teamed her up with, and they moved him to the West Coast so they could be a team, and they were dating. And this, of course, this cover here, Hawkeye and his shenanigans. But yeah, and that lasted for a couple of years in the 70s, and then she kind of disappears again. What you suspect is she's off doing something for S.H.I.E.L.D. or whatever. And Matt goes back to New York to be back in Hell's Kitchen. But yeah, that was quite an interesting thing to look at the trivia-wise of why you see her not being in her own print, but just kind of parts of teams and duos. All right, so next we got on the list is Bucky Barnes, aka the Winter Soldier. Most of you are familiar with him because you've watched Marvel Cinematic, the MCU. We've covered Falcon and Winter Soldier has been watched. But James Buchanan, Bucky Barnes, that is his full name. He grew up on Army bases and proved himself strong enough to be on the role of Captain America's sidekick during World War II. They fought the Axis powers and throughout the big one until Bucky perished, and I put perished in quotes, in a scheme orchestrated by the original Baron Zemo. For years, Captain America believed his partner to be dead, but the Russians came upon Barnes's body when he perished, his body fell into the ocean, sea, the ice, whatever. And he turned, he had amnesia, and they turned that amnesiac young man into the perfect killing machine because he couldn't remember who he was and where he was. He also went through the Red Room just like Natasha did. That's where they met. They dated secretly for some time. Yeah, they turned him into a killing machine where they would turn him, like literally wake him up to go and complete missions and then come back and go back to sleep. He was difficult to control because due to the fact that sometimes his old memories will kind of interrupt, it made him unpredictable. And so the Russians decided to cryo-freeze him between missions because they couldn't deal with a crazy Winter Soldier like being loose. Like he could not be controlled. So if those memories came back and he had a psychotic break, he was killing a whole lot of people. And the Russians were like, freeze him and we'll wake him up to complete missions and then put him back on ice. And that's what they did for many years. And Captain America eventually came in contact with Winter Soldier and recognized him as his partner and used a cracked cosmic cube. Is the cracked cosmic cube
The Tesseract?
The Tesseract.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, they used to call it that. Okay. And to return his friend's memories. Bucky is one of the few figures that came out of the Red Room and is one of the few people that Natasha truly trusts and cherishes because they can relate to one another a lot because of his training in the Red Room, because of her training in the Red Room, because they both have memories they can't remember of their youth and of who they used to be. And they would reconnect over the years. They renewed their relationship later when Barnes became the new Captain America after the Captain America was shot and killed after Civil War, the first Civil War. And he became the new Captain America with her support. And because they can relate to each other so much, they can be there for each other because who better to understand you when you've both done some horrible things in your past and killed quite a few people that you were sort of tricked into killing. So both of them being former assassins and feeling guilty about the life that they led, they can bring each other comfort. And that is Winter Soldier.
All right. So our next ally is Nick Fury.
Nick Fury Sr.
Yeah, Nick Fury Sr. Because here we have a picture of Nick Fury Sr. and I guess you can say either Nick Fury Jr. or the Samuel L. Jackson Nick Fury, whichever one they are. They haven't really stated how he came about or who he was. It was just a retcon done in the comic.
No. They explained it.
So they explained it?
Yeah.
Oh, it's in this book. Okay, yeah, we have a new book called Marvel Book, Expand Your Knowledge of a Vast Comics Universe.
Oh, yeah.
That goes way deeper than the Marvel encyclopedia.
Yeah, he's basically this Samuel Jackson with Coulson and all them. Mm-hmm. He is Nick Fury Sr.'s son, but because of Nick Fury has other children, which I did not realize. Okay. This particular son grew up Marcus Johnson. Right. His mother was CIA. She hid the fact that was Nick's son because anybody who is associated with Nick ends up dead. Hence, she finds out much later when her son is an adult. He comes home to his mother's funeral because she's been murdered by somebody who was after Nick Fury. Even though he and mom haven't been together in 20-something years since the boy's been born, she literally hid in Atlanta. So yeah, that's Nick.
Brings it close to home. Mm-hmm. All right, so Nick Fury Sr., the one on the left-hand side, was born during the Great Depression in Hell's Kitchen, New York. He became a legendary hero in the early years of World War II, taking missions into Europe alongside his friend Red Hargrove, under the command of Lieutenant Samuel Sawyer. Hargrove was killed in the attack on Pearl Harbor that led the U.S. to officially enter the war on December 7th, 1941. Fury also fought the Nazis in Northern Africa, then was reunited with Captain Sawyer, who made Sergeant Fury the leader of the U.S. Rangers' first attack squad that was soon nicknamed the Howling Commandos for their boisterous battle cry. Jim Dugan served as Fury's second in command and became his closest friend. During one mission, Fury's left eye was damaged by a grenade, and his lack of medical care eventually aggravated the wound. At one point, Professor Berthold Sternberg gave Fury the Infinity Formula, which retarded Fury's aging process, although it required him to take regular injections to stay alive. Late in the war, Fury joined the OSS, and with the war's end, joined their post-war CIA agency. This agency developed into SHIELD, in which Fury led for many decades. He helped Natasha with overcoming the brainwashing that she endured while in the Red Room. She is loyal to Fury and the admission for Fury when she defected from Russia. She is one of the top agents of SHIELD. Nick Fury.
Yep. And just to say, I don't know where Nick Fury is. It's very convoluted where he is in the Marvel Universe right now. Some believe he's still alive and he's in hiding somewhere or he's lost his memories wherever he's at. Nick Fury Jr. is a part of SHIELD now, who kind of stepped into his father's role. He's not director of SHIELD because that's Maria Hill,
right,
but he works for Maria, and he and Coulson work with Maria to kind of do what SHIELD does all over the world, all over the world, because they do not handle the galaxy. That is SWORD. So he kind of filled his father's footsteps. Now we're going to talk about some enemies. And of course, I will get Baron Wolfgang von Strucker. Yes, him and his long name. I'm just going to call him Strucker from now on. But the good old Baron, okay, let it go. Okay. No, it's there. Oh, wait. No. Am I talking about Hydra?
Go back.
No, I think it skipped something. No, it didn't.
Go to the next.
Okay, I'll go to the next one. We'll come back to Hydra. Okay. Because, this is just a little bit out of order. But the good old Baron von Strucker, we'll call him Strucker, was born in the late 19th century. That tells you how old this guy is. To a noble Prussian family. Wolfgang von Strucker became a Heidelberg fencing champion. And that's where he gets disfigured facial scars from fencing. He has a long scar across his eye. The rest of those scars come from other things that he's done that we'll get into. He fought with for Germany in World War I, and that was his first encounter with the Momentary Princess, which is a jewel that appears and disappears at regular intervals in time. That is very important to this whole history of him and Hydra, but we will get into that. He pursued this jewel for decades to follow. When Adolf Hitler rose to power in Germany in 1933, Strucker also joined the Nazi Party. And any party this guy could join that was bad, he joined. So he became a Nazi in 1933, and in the following years, in 1936, he became him and Geist became one of Hitler's top men, and they allied themselves with an Egyptian mentalist called Amal Farouk, who secretly was the Shadow King.
Who was the main nemesis in the TV show Legion.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Okay.
This is Professor X's biggest foe.
Oh, okay.
Magneto.
Okay. So the Shadow, that's right, the Shadow King, because the Shadow King is the one who recruited teenage Storm. He used to have, all the children steal from him, and yeah, okay. And so Shadow King, and in an attempt to dispute the lineages of the England's royal family and install a new king who would be sympathetic, that was their whole, they worked with the Shadow King to try to dispute the lineage of England's royal family and install a new king who was more sympathetic to the Nazis. The plot was thwarted by the Canadian adventurer, none other than Logan, who AKA becomes Wolverine. But at this time, he is assisted by some time travelers, members of Excalibur, who's time traveling members of Excalibur, Kitty Pryde, and Phoenix, Rachel Summers. In 1937, Strucker was sent to the United States to assassinate Senator Fulton, but he was foiled by a brigade for hire, Dominique Fortune. In 1941, he was sent to Madripoor to help the Hand Ninja cult transform a young Natasha Romanoff into their master assassin. They were then defeated again by Wolverine and Captain America and Ivan Petrovich, which is Ivan is Natasha's adoptive father. Took her under his wing and raised her. Later in 1941, Strucker invaded Latveria. Is that where your doom is from? Latveria, I knew. And they were seeking the use of Stormfang, which is the storm catcher, to control cosmic energies. And the device was wrecked by time-traveling members of the X-Force. Lots of time travel revolves around Strucker. While vacationing in Berlin, Strucker witnessed the Asgardian Thor attack on the Chancellery, after which Strucker followed a bandaged man through a portal into space. Realizing he had traveled decades into the future, Strucker stole some history books about the end of World War II, and he encountered the time machine's creator, Dr. Doom, who allowed him to return to the past. So that bandaged man was Doom, because, he walks around with bandages. He returned to the past, not believing that Strucker could win the war, even with the knowledge that he obtained. And he didn't. He lost to Fury's group, the Howling Commandos, and he became a member of the Hand in World War II, which then becomes Hydra.
The Hand is a ninja clan.
Okay. So we're about to. I'm gonna just go right on into Hydra because we're about to cover that.
Okay, so
Hydra.
now they are associated. They are the same. They are associated.
They are the same. Okay. No. Follow me. Ready? Okay, yeah. So
my contention comes not with what we read, but how Marvel has portrayed it in not just in the movies, but in their own book.
Yeah, because the Hand is also in Daredevil. What's the other one? Iron Fist. Iron Fist, yes. Luke Cage. The Hand always comes up. Now, because of history and because of Baron and his whole thing, the Hand that same Hand that was trying to kidnap Natasha to become their assassin, he's always worked for them. They've been AIM, the Hand, them, the Thule Society, and all, aka Leviathan, is who they are.
Well, right here it's saying Hydra is an ancient force that has always been trying to gain power, infiltrating to get the power. Alien powers came to Earth before humans and tried to establish an empire of darkness and evil. Even though they failed, their influences remained. They infiltrated secret ancient societies such as the Sun of Anubis and Ariophastix, where they ultimately became the Thor Society. Modern Hydra was born in 1943 after Baron Wolfgang von Strucker fell out of favor with Hitler. With the help of Red Skull, they diverted resources to create their own forces. He fled to the Pacific and gathered the deserted Japanese army and gangsters from the Hand Ninjas and amassed wealth and power. He names his new organization after the tentacle Hellenic monsters of myth, the Lernian Hydra.
Yep. So he took the Hand. So the same Hand Ninjas that Daredevil fights in the 70s, that gangster group still exists. They come out of Japan, but he took a lot of their a lot of the Japanese army was also affiliated with the Hand.
Right.
I'm sure if we go back and read some of the comics from that period of Captain America and all of them, where he is involved heavily, you'll see the hand in some of the Axis forces, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, he just and when he fell out of favor with Hitler, he knew he had to do something because what they had built in Germany was falling apart, and Hydra had to live. Well, before it was Hydra, it was the hand, and it was a lot of other stuff. But yeah, there he is with his little disfigured face, and there's Madam Hydra and just a minion, I guess, his minion costume.
Yeah. Hydra soldier.
Yeah. All hail Hydra. All right. And so, but to go back to Strucker, because of his connection to Hydra, who was also connected to the Russian army, like Hydra infiltrated everything after this. And them trying to kidnap Natasha as a youth, like she was a teenage.
You know, one of the big storylines in the Marvel universe is it flips everything on its head, and we find out that S.H.I.E.L.D. was infiltrated by Hydra in the very beginning, but they were allowed to exist.
Okay.
So it actually comes out in the
which movie?
One of the Captain America movies.
Yeah, I think
you
it was.
When they crashed the helicarrier?
Yeah, that was.
That was it the Winter Soldier?
Winter Soldier.
Okay,
yes.
So one of these movies, they basically show that Hydra has basically infiltrated S.H.I.E.L.D. and S.H.I.E.L.D. is Hydra.
Yep.
So what ends up happening in one of your storylines, Captain America actually takes on the mantle as the head of Hydra.
Gotcha.
And that's a real nice storyline. I didn't read the whole thing, but it goes over to the Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. TV show that aired on ABC.
Yeah.
They actually touched on that.
Okay.
That whole
I really do need to watch that. I just yeah. I think it was okay. It's a little bit out, but okay. Got more to go. All right, we have the Red Guardian here. Now he's considered foes to her because of their complicated past. In the end, he did what was right when he sacrificed himself to save her and the Avengers. But Alexei Shkashkova was one of he was a most acclaimed test pilot who's the KGB saw, and they were like, hey, let's make this guy some money. So they decided to set him and Natasha up to wed because she was the top spy, top agent for the Red Room Academy, and he was the top pilot. So yeah, they manipulated Natasha in their marriage for years, and then they decided to explode his rocket and as he was going to space to fake his death so he could become Red Guardian. And Red Guardian, he was given the same super serum or a close super serum to what Captain America got, but it, of course, again, it's like the generic version. It doesn't really hit the same. Does the job, but doesn't hit the same. And he was supposed to be Russia's version of Captain America. He was supposed to bring great honor, and that is what he did. Because he wore the mask and the suit, Natasha never knew that he was still alive. And he paraded around the world doing things for Russia in the name of Russia, saving lives. But he was just as much as a weapon and a pawn as Natasha was being a Black Widow, Black Widow. Due to his death, it made Natasha a better assassin. So you could kind of sort of say, yay for that, to be the best of who she is. But he was not dead, and that Red Guardian costume is sort of like a kind of like Captain America's costume. It can be passed on. It is a symbol. So is the Red Guardian. So Alexei is not the first Red Guardian, and he's also not the last Red Guardian. But the costume becomes a property of the Red Room, and so they could just choose who they put in there. And that was him up until his death in the 70s. But he's sort of like he could be, he at times was a nemesis to Natasha, but in the end, like I said, he did what was right and sacrificed himself to save her life. So can't really be mad at the guy for that.
All
All
right.
right.
Next up, we have the second Black Widow, and we'll be real quick about this. She emerged from a background similar to Natasha's, the deadly super spy known as Yelena Belova. She is one of those who has also held the Black Widow mantle at various times. They have worked together in the past, and Natasha has also tried to lure Yelena away from the Widow program. Although Yelena has chosen to stay and team up with Hydra, which puts her at odds with Natasha.
Yes. Now, if you have seen Black Widow, the movie, you know that Yelena is sort of put as Natasha's sister. We call everyone who goes to the Red Room a sister. It's like a cult. And everybody who goes through there, they are literally sisters because they are all brainwashed into thinking of being a sister. But they are like family too. And if one of you dies, the team suffers, pretty much is the concept. So, but Yelena is not a good guy. And she is, she has been on some of the secret superhero teams, but it's only been temporarily, only to work together to achieve something. And then she goes back to being for Yelena. So yes, she is interesting. So it's gonna be great to see what the MCU does with her, because they've set her up to be the next Black Widow. But we all know that, hey, she's a complicated character. All right, so we got our teams. Natasha was part of many teams. Number one team here is the Avengers, the Earth's Mightiest Heroes, teamed up together to battle. There's always been mighty heroes throughout history. We've covered the Eternals. They were mighty heroes. They went up against the Celestials many years ago, but there's always been a mighty team that represented Earth. Right now is the Avengers. They assembled to battle Loki for the first time. Loki tricked the Hulk into attacking and creating a disaster. The Hulk almost got blamed for this, but but Iron Man, Ant-Man, and Wasp respond to a message intended for Thor and show up and fight Loki. Loki had this perfect plan, and it went up in smoke. So Loki's plan was thwarted to take over Earth, and the superhero team was born. When Hulk left the group, Captain America joined, and when he was unthawed from an iceberg, and he joins the team and leads the team. So he's kind of like Avengers 2.0. That's when him, Widow, the speedster, what's his name? Quicksilver, and Natasha joined together, and what was one more? Oh, Hawkeye and Vision. Yes, that's Avengers 2.0. So yes, and the Avengers has always been backed by the billionaire, just like Batman backs the Justice League and all their shenanigans. Tony backs the Avengers, and he also backs S.H.I.E.L.D. And even though S.H.I.E.L.D. is a government ran program, Tony is the one who brought it together, which is interesting. We'll talk about that later, though. And team members come and go from the Avengers, so their lineup is always changing. Natasha has been one of those team members, and she was also an enemy of this team, also at one point in time when she was Black Widow. So yeah, that is the Avengers.
All right, the next, the Strategic Homeland Intervention Enforcement and Logistics Division, otherwise known as SHIELD. An espionage and security organization that defends Earth and its people from groups that pose advanced technological and sometimes supernatural or extraterrestrial threats. SHIELD is appointed to lead all international operations and represents the agency, the governments, other agencies, and the public. It's comprised of thousands of operatives, some former CIA, Mossad, Hatut, Zaraz, and MI6 agents, while others come from a superhuman background. These operatives carry out clandestine missions to protect humans, eradicate evil, and sometimes root out corruption. Earth's SHIELD was led by Tony Stark, the US industrialist, inventor, and superhero who spearheaded SHIELD to combat tyranny and crime across Earth in response to World War II terrorist groups like Hydra. Now, I said Tony Stark, but I meant Howard Stark.
Now, no, gotta remember, see, when, okay, so they rewrote, the MCU rewrote that history because it's too, when Iron Man came out, you're talking about 60,
Okay,
is the
that's right,
60s,
right.
yeah. So Tony at that time did, Tony was, yeah,
Okay.
but MCU had to rewrite that because Tony couldn't be almost 70 years old being Iron Man. So yeah, it was Tony in the comics, yeah.
And he was the first director.
He was.
Okay.
He was sort of the spearhead. Yeah, he led it in the beginning. Their first director, he vouched for.
He vouched for Fury.
Yeah, he spearheaded it. Like he thought, hey, SHIELD will be something great.
Right.
And then he's like, but I can't lead it because I'm Tony Stark.
Now, it says that the council chose because they didn't choose, even though he put Fury out there, they didn't choose Fury first.
Yeah, Rick Stone.
They chose Colonel Rick Stoner to lead, and he trained the agency's first operatives and sought the culprits that destroyed the first helicarrier.
Yeah.
Directors have included Colonel Rick Stoner, Colonel Nick Fury, Timothy Dum Dum Dugan, George Washington Bridge, Sharon Carter, Mariah Hill, Tony Stark, Steve Rogers, Norman Osborn, and Daisy Johnson. Daisy Johnson,
she's the current
Quake.
Yeah, Quake. She is the current leader of SHIELD. Like I said, no one knows where Fury is right now.
Field agents make up the bulk of SHIELD's ranks and carry out most of the organization's missions. Numerous agents have worked directly with superheroes throughout the years, notably including Natasha Romanoff, aka Black Widow, and Daisy Johnson.
Yeah.
And that is she.
And then we have our Secret Avengers. Now, Secret Avengers is sort of a temporary group for Marvel. It was founded by Captain America in response to Civil War. Civil War, which was the direct result of the Human Registration Act. Now, I know the movie was a good 2.5 hours long of just, a lot of stuff going on, a lot of. This was a year-long storyline for Marvel that encompassed every single character from the X-Men to Spider-Man to Captain America to the Avengers. Every character was affected by She-Hulk, Hulk, all of them were affected by the Superhero Registration Act. The movie only touched on some of those people, but it was every character. Every character was involved. Captain Marvel. Natasha. Now, Tony wanted, Iron Man wanted a Superhuman Registration Act in response to something that had happened that caused a lot of destruction. Tony says, the government says, let's do a huge Superhuman Registration Act. Tony totally backs it, along with Captain Marvel at the time, who was also leading, Captain Marvel was leading the Avengers at the time.
Was the reason in the comics the same as the reason in the movie? The destruction of a city?
I believe so. It was mass destruction, and so I don't know if it was the same city as it was in the movie, but yes, it was this loss of many innocent lives was what happened. Those who wanted to fight against Iron Man's initiative created the Secret Avengers. Those are these guys here. There were some people who did not agree, and leading them was Captain America. Captain America said that there was no good to come of something that was sort of like, it reminded him a lot of Nazi Germany, where you had to register as a Jew. And he felt like it took away anonymity of superheroes, because a lot of them had aliases that no one knew about. They had lives, they had families, and Captain America felt like if you made them register, even though they were registering with the government, it took away that secret identity they had, and now they have to worry about their family. And one of the biggest storylines of this is that during this time is that Spider-Man actually tells the world who he really is, that he is Peter Parker during this storyline. And it causes him great loss because of that. So Captain America eventually gives up the Secret Avengers, and he basically tells them, hey, we got to stop fighting, because this is not, Natasha had sided with Iron Man in the beginning, but she ended up defecting and going over to the Secret Avengers in the end. She was basically spying for Steve. Her and Steve were very good friends, and she was spying for Steve. And when Captain America gives himself up during this time, after he's like, we've been fighting too long, now we're fighting one another, and the infighting is creating even more problems. He's like, I didn't ever meant for this. I just don't believe in it. And he turns himself in as a criminal. Charges are brought up against Captain America. And before he can even face a judge, he was killed on the courthouse steps by a sniper. And the group after that, the Secret Avengers, were disbanded, and the majority of the core members who have joined the underground Avengers group after that. But yeah, that was the whole thing of the Secret Avengers. So.
And this next group was actually co-founded by the Black Widow.
Gotcha.
And this is one of the only groups not funded by Tony Stark.
Nope.
The Champions debuted with great fanfare as the first major superhero team in Los Angeles. So this is before the West Coast Avengers and everything. For all its money, power, and promise, the eclectically mismatched group lacked unity and direction, and its history was short. The driving force behind the group was the wealthy Angel, who created a Champions Inc. corporation to finance and administer the team with the aid of business manager Richard Fenster and lawyer Emerson Bell. The idealistic Angel envisioned the group as heroes for the common man who would be more accessible to the general public. The team began with an attack on the UCLA campus by the rogue Olympian god Pluto, who sought to force his fellow gods Hercules and Venus, both UCLA lecturers at the time, into marrying Hippolyta and Ares as part of a plot to overthrow Olympian monarch Zeus. Hercules and Venus resisted with the aid of super spy Black Widow, demon cyclist Ghost Rider, and mutant heroes Angel and Iceman. Pluto's plot was foiled, and while Venus chose to return to Olympus, the other 5 heroes decided to remain together as a new super team, the Champions. The team, however, soon disbanded due to bankruptcy, and Natasha attempted a partnership with Hercules without success. The members of the Champions were, as I said, Angel, Dark Star, Ghost Rider, Iceman, Hercules, and Black Goliath, who was an honorary member who came on as a scientific advisor.
Mm-hmm.
The Champions, or the Champions of Los Angeles.
Yes, yes, yes. And again, they are now bankrupt. And that's all we have for Black Widow, Natasha Romanoff. Like I said, if you've seen the movie, you've known some of the changes that Marvel has done to her character in the MCU to sort of fit their narrative of her. But really, she, as you can see, is tied down to no man. or team or anything. She is loyal to some, and those some are very few. But yeah, we're excited for this round. If you want to go and check these out and where we got all our information from. Just a reminder, if you have a Clayton County Library card, you can access Comics Plus, and you can read thousands of digital comics, graphic novels, and manga from Clayton County Library System. There's no holes, no waits. You can download for all offline access to your tablet, computer, or smartphone. And all you have to do is have to have a Clayton County Library card. So if you don't have one, you won't be able to access that. But if you do have one, do access. And if you want to get one, come on by and get one from one of our 6 branches right now, because one of them is closed, but one of our 6 branches. We will be seeing you guys. I know we're a little bit off schedule this week because you saw us last week, but this week you won't see us for another 2 weeks. We will be covering DC's The Boys on August 17th at 4 p.m. So the boys there on the right, we will be covering them. And we will see you guys August 17th.